Welcome to Model Engineering for Beginners, and this one is part 39, and it's called Some More Questions from YouTube Viewers Seeking Advice. I receive many questions like these that you're about to see on a daily basis. Especially question 1, should I buy a part finished steam engine to save time? To start with, here's an example of an engine that wasn't bought as a part finished project. This is a twin tandem compound steam engine. And there is a big problem with this twin tandem compound steam engine. Watch what happens when I put my finger on one of the crank webs. The crankshaft just spins free, so this engine just cannot possibly work. This engine was initially left with me with a collection of really bad engines to repair. The more I looked at the collection of engines, the less worthwhile it was going to be for the customer to have me rebuild them. This engine, for instance, had a lot of soft-soldered copper piping that was actually soft-soldered when it was pushed together after the engine had been built. The number of hours it would take just to dismantle this engine would be quite a lot. And then, of course, after doing that, I would put it back together, possibly to find out that it never worked anyway. This, of course, only applies to my situation. If you're a hobbyist, well, I'm a hobbyist really, I'm not a professional. That's not strictly true. I am, of course, a professional musician, recording studio engineer and videographer. I received a comment the other day from a viewer which said, "Hi Keith, why does everybody have to be a pro at everything? Your work reflects your skill set and that's all that matters. More importantly, you enjoy it." And I think this viewer got that right in one. I do this job because I enjoy it. I'm not a professional. I do it for fun. It is my hobby. And luckily, because I have video equipment and the knowledge how to use it, I can video the process in high detail. So that's one down. In amongst this collection of engines was this thing. Believe it or not, it's a Stuart beam engine. And this is the exhaust pipe. Obviously the hole's been drilled in the wrong place and elongated. If this is a visible part on the outside of the engine, what are the internal components like? Some parts of this engine are quite well made and others are not. Look at this, the main bearing is a bit of a rattle fit. I have a sneaking suspicion that it was originally designed to have a sleeve in there. You also have to take into consideration the amount of time it takes to remove rust. This is one of the pair of cylinders from a Stuart 1010, and what's happened here is very common. When a beginner makes an engine, they often get the drill angle wrong when drilling the ports from the edge of the cylinder to the main ports on the block. And instead of the drill going from the edge of the cylinder into the port, it comes out in the middle of the port face block. For this builder, it had happened twice. This is the other cylinder, and this is a major problem because the drill's broken through almost into the port. This is not really fixable. And it gets worse on this engine. This is a standard which supports everything. And it's cracked. This could be repaired with some JB weld, but I'd rather not. Another variant on the same question, question 2, should I buy an old steam engine and rebuild it to save time? This is the simplex that I'm currently working on when I first got it, and along with 2 more engines in similar condition were brought into my workshop a while ago. The customer's requirements were to rebuild them, repaint them, and make them into nice engines. The simplex is extremely worn in many areas. From my point of view, the number of hours for a ground-up rebuild would be so excessive that the final cost of the job would outweigh what the engine was worth. In other words, it just wasn't worth it. On the simplex, as you can see, the crank pin's loose. Frequently people arrive at my workshop with engines for me to repair, and sometimes I can do it while they wait because it's a very simple fault. But not when they're like this. I turned down this job for the reasons I've just mentioned. The only good thing about the simplex was it had a brand new boiler with it, untested but brand new. And the previous boiler was completely unserviceable because when he brought the simplex to the workshop it was still in place. I decided to buy this engine for a fair price off the owner, but before I did I took it over to Simon Hudson's place, the steam workshop, to have the boiler hydraulically tested. And once a boiler certificate was issued, I then bought the engine from the owner. This simplex is a bit unusual. It has extra wheels, and the wheels give it the prairie arrangement. If I stand at the back of the workshop, close one eye and squint at it, it does basically resemble a prairie tank. I know a lot of viewers are watching this video series that I made about it. It's currently on part 61. The videos are edited to make them a reasonable length, but so far I've lost count of the hours I've got in this job. As you can see, the old steam turret didn't fit in the new boiler, and it's just one more job to do in the long list of jobs that need to be done. When I first put compressed air into the engine, it was very reluctant to even move. So here's question 3. Should I buy a broken steam engine and get someone to rebuild it to save time? And I think I've partially answered this question. The answer is no, definitely not. This is another engine from the stable of the same owner. It's an LBSC Speedy, and it was completely seized up, and have a look at the state of it. The return crank is a bit of a mess, and the eccentric rod is bent, and the bush in the eccentric rod is also worn. I'm really not being picky, but it's quite a horrible engine. I did, however, agree to repair it, and the reason that it was seized up was there was water in the cylinder and the piston valve, which had rusted everything solid. If you want to see more information on these engines being repaired, the series is called The Trouble with Old Steam Locomotives. This one was the worst. Even the buffer stocks were broken. This is a meter maid, and it was built at a 7 1/4 inch gauge. Before bringing these locomotives to me for repairs and rebuilds and things, they'd been taken to someone else who'd started the job and not finished the job. I don't get why the buffer stocks are so bad. They're made up of a buffer stock, a washer and a flat metal plate. What a mess. The only good thing about this engine is that it had a current boiler certificate. A full rebuild and repaint was absolutely out of the question from a cost point of view. In this clip, have a look at the centres of the connecting rod. In a very similar manner to the simplex, there's a bit of an error, either the quartering's out or the rod lengths are wrong. That's not an insurmountable problem, and neither is this. It needs new bushes on the connecting rod. Oddly enough, one side was far worse than the other, but I made a pair of new bushes anyway. And then there was quite a lot of slop in the valve gear, all of which took some time to rectify. We agreed that I would perform a sympathetic restoration on this engine, which I did, and in the end it ran quite well. It still took me more hours than I budgeted for. Here you can see that yet another of the buffer stocks was also broken. What a mess. But that's it for now. I'd just like to say, as always, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my main Steam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.